The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavioral loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. Authenticity is being aligned with your own internal subconscious self and your external expression of yourself. And omniscience is being able to know everything at the same time, having no gaps in knowledge and just purely knowing. Now, how the hell are these related? This is what we're going to cover today. If you are an inauthentic person, you are likely very insecure, and you likely are socially anxious, and you likely are not very confident in yourself, and you likely suffer existentially, and you likely don't really know how to orient yourself in life and time and space. And you might think that you are a very authentic person and are fueled by arrogance instead. And this arrogance is usually to mask the insecurity underneath. So there are people who seem very confident, who seem very authentic, but it is all born out of this insecurity of being seen for how they really are, and therefore they basically overcompensate with being very, bombastic, right? But all of this means that the person really hasn't found itself. There's multiple parts of your own psychological makeup that seem to contradict each other. One part wants to say this thing, another part wants to say that thing, and overall there's something that is just always in conflict, and you don't feel good about it. So an insecure ego basically means that the architecture that has constructed this ego isn't really sure about its own structure. And this usually is because the environment that you have been born in or have grown up in has made you feel that you cannot trust your own senses, and that other people's senses is more important than your own. So it creates a sense of insecurity. For example, you might think that you are a decently okay guy. Just let's talk about something superficial, like just your external beauty standard. And then someday you find a person and go on a date, and then they clearly find you very unattractive, and they maybe even tell you this in your face. Now, if you're already slightly insecure and you didn't get validation from a different place, then this becomes part of an identity. Oh, it's not just a person found me unattractive, but I am unattractive. So it immediately becomes part of the identity structure. So now it's almost like a virus where all semantic associations with your own attractiveness level become kind of connected to this. So then in multiple ways, in the way you render reality, there's a part of yourself that is insecure about your own looks because you want to be more aesthetically attractive, but internally you always fear that others will give you the feedback that you are not. So you're always trying to outrun the expectations that other people have from, your own expression. The attractiveness example is, of course, one out of infinite, but you can see the underlying mechanics, right? Is that you want reality to be like in a way that it isn't. And when I say reality here, it is something very almost perverted, because you don't actually think just as reality as some subjective experience of another person, but you think about it as an objective way to look at you. And in some way, when somebody looks at you and the way he sees you, from their vantage point, it is exactly how you are like. So if they look at you and they think, wow, this guy is kind of ugly, then from their perspective, this is how it is like. But it doesn't mean that this is just objectively the case for everybody, right? But then your own reality model feeds this into itself, and then it's just in your mind true for everybody. So the thing is that you probably don't want this to be the case. And again, I'm taking one example, it could be literally anything. You don't want this to be the case, so you probably are doing things to avoid being perceived in this way. You're probably trying to, not let this be true. So maybe you work out more, maybe you care more about how you dress, or it doesn't really matter. And now you're looking for validation. Now you want the change in your behavior being reflected by the outside world. And now the outside world can give you feedback. Yes, you look better today. No, you look awful. And what is actually going on here? What is going on is that you don't actually know how you look like. And you're always depending on other people to tell you how you look like. So in this model, you don't know yourself. You cannot know yourself because you are relying on other people to tell you what is true. So you then also don't know how to express yourself because maybe how you express yourself is not very much liking to others. And maybe they think you're stupid when you talk this way. And maybe you're also just way too shy or too extroverted. And you kind of need to adapt for other people to, be liked. And now again, are you a likable person? It depends on other people. Are you intelligent? It depends on other people. Are you spiritually and mystically enlightened? Well, it depends on other people. Maybe you can kind of get a hint on where I'm going with this. Because how could you remove this entire ordeal? Like, how can you just be certain about who you are? And it requires for your own ego identity structure to be configured in a different way so that on the foundational level, you do not need other people to tell you about how things are like, but you know already how things are like. You already know how attractive or unattractive you are. You know how intelligent or unintelligent you are. You also know that it depends pretty much on the perspective that is looking at you, right? So it's like a multiple way street. And you understand that it is flexible and it can change over time. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't define you, as it's just one thing out of many. If you can deconstruct all negative beliefs in your own head and then find a way to make this solid and true to you, now what is going to happen is that you're going to express yourself authentically because you already know who you are. You already know exactly how you're like. And you don't need anybody to tell you that. I mean, getting feedback is helpful because you're like, yeah, I guess I need to see where this is coming from, but it doesn't define you. Now, how is this omniscience? Like, you know more about yourself, but it's not omniscience. Well, the ultimate level of authentic expression, being fully sovereign in your own mind, being completely shameless in who you are and committing fully into your own sense of identity, is omniscience. It is omniscience in the sense that you know everything that you could possibly know in any point in time from your own vantage point. Now, it is very obvious that true omniscience, like a god would be truly omniscient from all spaces of consciousness through all space and time, is of course something else. So you can call it local omniscience if you want. But the point stands that right now, in the rendering of your own reality model, you do actually know everything you could possibly know. That's also where this, seeking mentality kind of stuff starts to dissolve. Because instead of imagining living a better life or a different life or being enlightened in some, ultimate way, you think, okay, wait a minute, like everything kind of is how it is from its own vantage point. So everybody or everything knows itself perfectly from its own vantage point. And all the mind really does is doubt what it already knows, which is a Substack article I've written, by the way, that you can, read. So what happens is that the sense of omniscience becomes deeper and deeper the more you actually allow yourself to admit how all-knowing this really is. Because if you watched my last episode about knowing without belief systems, you know that when you truly know something, it is not different from being the thing. And if you truly are yourself fully, 100%, without internal friction or denial, then you are completely aware of yourself while also completely expressing yourself exactly for how you are. So your subconscious and your expression is aligned because there's no gap in your knowledge. You are omniscient. Now, I think if I were to write an article about it, I might call it local omniscience. I do think this is probably a good distinction to draw, but you get where I'm coming from, I'm sure. Because if you are full of doubt in your own personal mind, like if you listen to what I'm saying and you like question it and think about it and stuff, you can catch yourself like having your own egoic resistance towards what I'm saying here. Because the ego thrives on the instability of your own architecture in a certain way. Because if you are uncertain about your sense of identity and your structure is kind of full of doubt and skepticism towards really knowing who you are, then there are probably things about yourself that you are hiding. There are probably things about yourself you rather do not know, do not want to know. This is where shadow work and the sense of Jungian psychology is extremely relevant. Because of course, you're not going to be omniscient if there's a bunch of bad, evil stuff from your past that you're not acknowledging. If there is stuff that you're not proud of and you don't want anybody to know, not even yourself, then you will always be insecure. Now, this insecurity is not fueled just from other people outside of you telling you how you are actually like, but it is an internal, sort of fracture of the system that you don't want to repair, because looking at the fracture is way too emotionally taxing. This is why in, like religious traditions, being able to, talk to the priest in private and tell him about your sins and basically asking God for forgiveness is the sense of cleaning your unconscious and subconscious mind by admitting to yourself what you've done and admitting everything that, was kind of wrong or how you've wronged yourself and other people. And only this way you can gain knowledge of yourself that is truly unfiltered and truly full of authentic expression. Because if you have a ton of skeletons in the closet, then why would you just intuitively express yourself with authenticity if your authenticity might reveal to the world that you have, skeletons in your closet? But if you do have actually looked at the stuff that is kind of scary to look at, then it is, pretty unlikely that you're just going to have to say it to other people or like admit it to others. Because think about what it does when you admit to like a sin to another person in confidence. In some ways, it can be liberating, right? Because you are seen and accepted for your mistakes. In another way, you are just validation seeking. You are in the same system again now. I've done something bad. I've done something evil. Am I okay? Like, is this allowed? Am I acceptable? Can people still love me? And now I have to look outside the world, fall off, so I can feel like I am lovable despite all my imperfections or even dark sides. So there is an interesting sort of relationship with self-honesty, honesty about what you are perceiving, authentic expression, and also a sense, of spiritual advancement. Because spirituality is really the science about the self and understanding yourself. And therefore, the only way you can truly understand yourself is if you become, omniscient through all facets of your own mind. And then expressing yourself becomes an enormous blast. If you want help to uncover the skeletons of your mind, then check out my Ego Architecture Audit in the link in the description. There's also deeper content that you can find on my Substack, where I'm going to announce, a space where people can do this type of work, in groups, guided by, this very open way of thinking. Now, to double down even further on this idea and make it cosmical, think about how authentic God is if his capability is creating infinite experience and infinite life forms and infinite creativity and infinite possibility for good and bad, and then owning it fully and just being like, okay, chaos and order, do your thing. That's who I am. That's what I am. That's what I do. There is something quite, cosmical about the fact that reality does represent everything with full authenticity, in the sense that it is not possible for an object to be inauthentic because the object's expression is exactly how the object is like. There's no internal friction. And in some way, you might look at us as humans also as objects. The only difference is that we have a psychological makeup that resists this natural expression, usually, conditioned by other people around us. So there's a sort of sense of omniscience that goes way beyond just this sense of local omniscience. So even though I'm trying to qualify it with local omniscience, the feeling that you can get through ego dissolution and these awakening type experiences doesn't feel like local omniscience at all. It feels like, okay, wait a minute. If the entire universe has brought so much cause and effect and karma to this current state of my personal biological body, and I'm exactly how I am right now because everything that happened before me, then the logical conclusion is that you are the entirety of the awareness field of the universe in this point in time. And that you are also immediately interconnected with all other state spaces of qualia, as they all have caused you to be here in the first place. Meaning that from this way of looking at things, you have actually gone through the entire history of the cosmos just to end up here and have fully committed to every little aspect of itself, knowing itself completely, and in this way, in some sort of abstract block universe point of view, you are actually omniscient of all things, because there is actually no inauthenticity, as all objects of existence express themselves as equally true. Now, if this was a bit crazy to you, then I recommend you watch this video next.